We're there.
Hey, we're live.
Hey,
Or
hey, hey,
at
hey.
least we will be. So as a bit of an interesting how my week went, got my ass absolutely handed to me by my second dose of Pfizer.
Oh, yeah. I hear it's pretty 50-50 whether or not you're going to have like a very aggressive reaction. A couple of my coworkers have had like one guy I was talking to, he's about an hour away from calling the hospital. Like he had a
Wow.
bad like he couldn't see for an hour.
Wow.
Yeah.
And he didn't
yeah.
call the hospital? How do you
No,
not call the
I
hospital
know.
when you
I
can't
know.
see?
That's what I said. Like, how did you like
I'm
that's,
blind. Well, let's see where it's going. Let's
He's
see,
a
let's
bigger
see.
man than I am.
Yeah, it could be worse. So let's
God.
find out what's gonna happen here. I got the shot Monday, and I was supposed to have Friday off, today off, because I don't like going to work after Canada Day. So I took today off, and Tuesday was rough. I went in, did the show. But then I also came out and I did there was like a summer solstice festival that they were doing a week late because of weather. And so I went and I did that, and I was emceeing, and I brought all the bands on stage, all that stuff. But I was like half dead. And I was talking to Jay, my co-host. I'm like, Jay, I don't think I'm gonna come in tomorrow, man. I'm too far gone. He's like, oh yeah, that's fine, man. Just call in, man. It's all good. You don't need to come to work. So I didn't go to work Wednesday. So I've been off since Tuesday night,
Nice.
and I have been getting my ass I exhausted all the time, dizzy, all the
It's
fun
official.
stuff.
Official.
that?
We're live.
Oh, well, we've got one person in, but not in chat yet.
That's,
but
that's
hello,
me.
one concurrent viewer.
That's
you.
me.
All right. All right then. Sorry about last week off too. What did you do with your Friday?
It's probably same old, same shit, different day. Probably drank and had food and
Well, at least
Not a
you're
whole lot going on.
consistent. You are consistent. There is that.
Friday's like my one day. Like the rest of the week, especially last week for me was crazy. I was three of the 5 work days last week. I was working until 5 a.m. Yeah. We had a bunch of national country stuff that I was working on. These artist takeover things that we do that I had to produce up, and then some imaging for our AC station. It was a mess.
All right.
It was a mess. And plus commercial work. We had a 1-day sale a while ago, and we sold many hundreds of thousands of dollars in revenue in a day, all of which had to start on the 28th. So that was fun.
Good times.
And then but then this week I got Friday off. I got today off, so it's like, all right, 3 days, and the 3 days are relatively uneventful.
We've got 4 people in. Welcome everyone.
Welcome.
Last Friday, so my in-laws were supposed to show up on the Friday afternoon, and we were going to be taking our air conditioner out from underneath our deck. I don't know why they put it there. We're going to be moving an air conditioner. My father-in-law is an HVAC guy. We got that done, but we also had to replace the furnace in our house. And because we'd bought a new furnace for the house, and it was that whole thing took us all day Saturday and part of Sunday. Excuse me, beer's hitting me hard. So yeah, like Friday night, there was no chance I was going to be doing anything. So my apologies to those. I actually got messages on Twitter. People like, where's the stream, man? What are you doing? Where is it?
Nice. Hey, see, you got something good when you take it away, and people are like, what happened?
Wait, where's the stream? And you know what? That's awesome. I love to see that. It's good to see people are actually enjoying this. 4 people in, still nobody in chat. How's everyone doing today? Just give us a hi. That's all we're asking for.
Hi.
Not you. I know you're watching the stream too, but not you. I was showing Dylan picked me up an Aston Stealth. That's going to be featured in an upcoming video. I have reasons for it. Dylan, what do you think of this? See, this is the shock mount, and it's going to come up on your view in a few
Yeah, it's got to
seconds
go
here.
wait. Yeah.
So
wait.
not a shock mount, but it's the link to the microphone, so you can put it on a stand, and it just pulls out. And it's like a key. So you put the key in, and let me show you. You won't see this for a few seconds, but the movement between the
Okay.
microphone and the key is I don't like it.
So you wouldn't be comfortable mounting it upside down.
Well, and that's it's one of those things that, yeah, like mounting it from here, I don't know, like the amount of force it takes to get it out. Valley D says, hi, Unusual Audio. Hi. How you guys doing this Friday? Welcome back. Good to have you. The beer is cold. So yeah, that's going to be featured. It's got 4 voicings on it. I do have a specific reason I'm featuring this. We're going to be comparing it to the SM7B as well as the RE20, which are the 2 microphones specifically that it takes on.
That was really funny, just because of the lag, because I can hear you before I can see you. You're like, and we're gonna and just as you were saying, we're gonna compare it to the SM7B. You grabbed your beer in the video, so I was like, we're gonna compare it to the SM7B, and I was like, I had to think about it for a second. I was like, that's not a SM7B.
Whoa, I was talking into my microphone.
I wish that was an
Great.
SM7B. I would talk into that every day.
Jan, the weather here has been sweltering, brutal. It's cooler today, but kind of rainy and gross. But I still have to turn my AC on because it's all damp outside. So
Yeah,
welcome,
it is
Jen.
humid as hell.
So this is a fun thing. So my last video was, do you need a cloud lifter? And I got a few comments on that. One was from Bangs that I kind of had fun with, because Bangs was like, rolls eyes, says, do you need a cloud lifter, features Fethead in video. And I'm like, well, that's the whole, everyone knows what a cloud lifter is.
You should. I mean, so I think what Bangs needs is, so the title is a bit of clickbait. I mean, cloud
Yeah.
lifter is the word everybody's looking for, but we're really talking about mic activators in general.
Which if you put that in the title, no one's clicking on it. Like that's
exactly,
the point.
exactly, right?
So
Yeah.
another person, and this drives me nuts. Actually, I'm gonna go get the comment while we're talking.
Oh
here.
boy.
Another person, and this is kind of what irritates me with a lot of the videos that I have planned, what might be coming out later on, is the idea of specificity when you're talking about the basics of audio, right? So you're talking about the terms you're using, and so many people like to push hairs. And this one's coming from Kenneth McCall. And he says, quote, of gain to push, I don't like this term since it usually ends with the microphone. Preamps don't push the microphone. And now, the point of what I was saying is that you find yourself a preamp that is the ability to push a specific microphone. I get it that there are some issues with the terminology of that. But when you start to split hairs with stuff like that, you know how frustrating that is?
It's very, I will say this, having hung around with lots of very technical people in the business, it is a very common jargon piece to talk about a preamp driving a microphone. It is electrically incorrect.
Well,
But
yeah, it's
as far as the way we talk, it's a very common thing
Yeah.
that people say when they talk about a microphone or a preamp powering. Well, I mean, in some instances, a preamp does power a microphone.
Right.
But in most cases, like in the case of this RE20, for example, my board is not powering or driving this technically, but I will still refer to it as, I
taking
need
the signal, it's amplifying the
yeah.
signal, and that's
I'm gonna juice this. I gotta juice this mic, you know.
yeah. And which is, I get it. That might be one of the things that irks you when you hear it. Like, there's a lot.
I get, but I say it all the time. It doesn't bug me because I'm not pedantic enough to give a shit. Like I know
Right?
what. Like here's my thing. When it comes to jargon and semantics, I know what you're saying. You know what you're saying.
Yes.
That's all that matters.
You
Right?
think it
That's all that
does.
matters.
Oh, you think it does?
But when you start dealing with really pedantic, like electrical engineering types who are like, "Whoa," it's like, shut up.
And I bring this up because the video coming up on Monday is audio basics in under
no.
12 minutes.
Oh no.
And I know what's going to happen. And I know the usual.
You're gonna
people-
be just hammered. You're gonna be hammered. Oh my god.
Well, and you've read the script on
I
that
have
one.
read it,
Yeah.
and I know, again, it's one of those things where even though it's all technically right, some people are going to be like, well, you weren't specific enough about
Yeah, and I did take your rewrite. Like, I completely ran with your rewrite. I did not go off base on anything for that reason, because I know there's going to be somebody that's going to be like, well,
Oh,
Let's get
even
on
with
the
that
list.
rewrite, like
Yeah.
again, if you, that's why I think what was one of the points that you were talking about was bit depth,
Yeah.
and or sample size, and like the difference between 24 and 32 bit. And you're
Yeah.
getting into the discussion of float versus fixed point, and I'm
Yeah.
like, don't.
I actually dropped that because of what you said.
don't do that, because the thing about like the thing that's complicated about fixed point versus floating points, bit depths, is the size of the bit is the volume that is represented by each bit or by each level is inconsistent. Fixed point, it's pretty much linear.
Yeah.
Floating point, you get an extra 700 plus dB off the that last 8 bits on the top end, but like everything below is not the same.
Hence the floating point. Well, and that's why like when you get into the weeds with discussing stuff like this, it can be
man, especially in the digital world.
Yeah,
like,
2-hour-long video. We're talking bit depth. That's what we're doing.
But I think, again, it's the audience, right? The audience doesn't care about those details, really.
Yeah.
I mean,
I hope
like,
not.
give me enough information to get the job done.
Right.
That's all I need, right?
Joseph Walters says, I almost said something, but the photo was correct. I'm not. Oh, yeah, because almost said something about the inline preamp. Yes, and I know what I have a cloud lifter on the way. It's taken its time. I needed to do a video. And this is the big pisser with all of this, doing videos up. I did 3 videos up so I could get the Isovox video done. And while I've been waiting for that extra part from Sweden, the videos have almost burned through. Like, I'm almost through those 3 videos, and I'm still waiting for the part from Sweden. It's on the way.
Ken, what up?
Ken, I didn't see a Ken. I don't see the Ken comment. Did Ken
just-
comment? Oh, there it is. Gentlemen, greetings. It's a little slower on my end.
That's weird. Usually it's the other way around. Usually you get it first, and
How
I.
dare? How you doing, Ken?
So I will say this on the topic of mic activators, just to put that to bed, from an electrical standpoint, I'll say why mic activators are a problem versus a preamp that has enough gain out of the box is when you add a mic activator to a circuit for a mic preamp, you're effectively adding circuitry, aftermarket circuit. You're modding the mic preamp, basically. That's what you're doing. And whenever you add circuitry, it's generally, when you're dealing with electronics, you generally aim for the circuit to be as discrete as possible, and meaning as few components as you can. So generally, a lot of, for example, preamps that are designed to drive ribbon mics, like some of the AEA stuff, or the ACA. AEA makes freaking raid sirens. What am I talking about? But some of the even the RCA preamps is their circuits are designed to be A, discrete, and B, they're designed to push enough gain. Again, this is a push word again. They're designed to push enough gain with those discrete circuits to run a really power hungry microphone. But the Cloud Lifter or the Fethead or there's several other. There's one with the word red in it, I think. I do the same thing.
Yeah.
They add circuitry to your circuit, which is going to introduce noise. It's going to introduce coloration. Even though the manufacturers of these mod devices, these activators, try to limit the amount that it's going to add those things, it still is inevitably. It's physics. It's going to add this unwanted noise, unwanted coloration to the sound. So, I mean, mic activator versus good preamp. Just get a good preamp, especially for the price that some of these mic activators go for, like the Cloud Lifter, which is gloriously overpriced.
Really quick before we dive a little bit deeper into this, because there was a comment that I want to bring up. Ken McCone says, "Good, just cracked a beer after a long day on the road. That is great. Cheers." I'm doing the Quebec Blanche de Chambly. It's it's a wheat beer. It's white. It's delightful. And George Pabis says, caught your show live for the first time. I'm sitting back in my chair learning from both you. Thanks for the privilege. Cheers, George. Thanks for joining us. The privilege is all ours. So a gentleman got to me and he's like, well, Aiden, most people who use cloud lifters buy the cloud lifters so they can stream with it. And they want to be able to get a decent signal to stream out with, instead of just having, the microphone levels really low. And I'm staring directly at OBS right now, and you can actually gain up through OBS. OBS does have
I don't recommend it.
No, I don't either, but OBS also has limiters. OBS also has compression. OBS also, there are settings on OBS to help you get more gain out of your microphone because OBS is set up for people who went out and bought an SM7B.
So here's the problem. Here's the problem with that. When it comes to interfaces doing stuff in 16-bit, which most of the time is, let's be honest, that's what's happening most of the time. The lower your gain is on going in to the converter, the lower your gain is going into the converter, the more quantization and shit that you're gonna get. So, boosting in post when it comes to recording in 16-bit or boosting post conversion, which is what you're talking about with OBS gain levels, is not great. Now, for streaming, is it going to be doable? Sure. But if you get into that mentality and you start doing that with your actual professional content in Adobe or in Studio One, no, don't do that.
No. And
you want a good level going into the converter, maximizing your dynamic range, minimizing your quantization, all those things.
Jan says, how many videos do you have lined up to publish when needed? I work week to week 99% of the time. If I have a big project coming up like the Isovox, which is going to take me doing a lot of shooting outside of the studio, like I'm going to be shooting in my kitchen for the best reflections, I could almost hear that despite it being muted. So it's going to be a big shoot. It's going to be very intensive. I want to make sure I cross all my T's, dot all my I's. When that happens, I'll line up a couple videos, much like the video of the do you need a cloud lifter kind of stuff, so I can have ample time to work on that without having to work on multiple videos all at once.
It's funny, every YouTuber is kind of different when it comes to that, like how far in advance they work. Like some work like a month in advance, some work like you said, like week to week.
Linus, you'll see like he's got 12 videos ready to go. At any given time they can hit
which
publish.
Is good because like if you get sick or especially in Linus's case where like that's the business, like you can't renege on that. So yeah, giving yourself like 6 weeks or 12 weeks of pad time is probably a good, if you can work that far in advance. Well, some people can't.
I will usually keep one video just as a spare, just in case I get sick, so I can like, if I get wildly sick on Sunday, or well, actually that's by Sunday I'm done the video. But on Friday, if I get sick, I can just throw a video up for Monday, get better by the next time the video comes out. And that's just smart. Now, those kinds of videos, usually I've got one coming up about headphones. If you noticed, I bought a new pair of headphones. These are the SRH 840s.
What do you think? What do you think?
They're hot, man. My ears are sweating like a son of a.
They're heavier, eh? They're beefier than the 440s.
So I'm going to show the SRH 440s to the camera. You can't really see the cracking that's happened on the 440s, but yeah, they're all cracked up. It becomes rigid, the ear cups.
Yeah. And that faux leather does not react well.
And the problem is because these had become rigid, I was able to use them and not get ear sweat. Mm. But the softness and the cupping of this, like my ears it's wet underneath my headphones.
Right now. Well, because they're contouring to your head like way better than the rigid ones would have been.
So I'm going to be, and yes, Bangs, we're going to talk about that in a second. I'm going to be getting the felt or the velvet.
The velour
ear pads for these headphones. But what I had a video, and the video set up to be what to look for when buying new headphones and the discussion of price to performance, because from the audio perspective, there is a diminishing rate of returns, but then you get a lot of little things.
I would say the 840s are beyond worth it, even for their price point. Just the sound quality difference by itself.
Yeah, sound quality, but then you get a lot of the perks as you go higher up the chain, and that's what the video is going to talk about. So yeah, I'll try to keep those videos for situations like this. Joseph says, how far in the weeds do you want to get? The Fethead was originally designed to amplify and impedance match ribbons to modern electronics. Yes. I didn't know that. Actually.
Well, I mean, so is the Cloud. I mean, Cloud makes ribbon microphones. In fact, they're active ribbon mics, which is bullshit. Ribbon mics don't need to be active. In fact, most ribbon mics you put 48 volts into them, the ribbon snaps. But the active ribbon mics from Cloud just have basically a built-in cloud lifter. That's sort of the idea. In fact, most I think Cloud was first to market with that idea of including an activator in the mic, and now you got all the knockoff companies like like ART that are coming out. Like ART actually came out with an active ribbon mic that was supposed to be kind of a knockoff Royer with a built-in cloud lifter. Of course, their instance of a cloud lifter is horribly noisy. But
what's horribly noisy? What's the noise level on that?
you can't use it. You could use it for maybe a decent level VO, but you're never going to be able to use it for an acoustic guitar or anything remotely quiet because it's way too noisy.
Yeah, Bangs brings up, I like my active dynamic mic from Blue. They probably missed this. I got the Stealth, the Aston Stealth. I'll be doing a review on that. Active dynamics are interesting, and I'm going to kind of dive in, and I've got my own active dynamic build that I want to do. So Bangs also says, good news, everyone. Pro Tools released M1 support this week. Okay, come on.
No, I updated to Pro Tools 12.6. Obviously, I'm on a PC, so I don't give two shits about it. I was impressed that Avid jumped on the bandwagon because they still don't officially support Ryzen.
Yeah, they don't support AMD, but they'll go for an M1
well, again,
ARM chip.
There's a lot of a lot of the Pro Tools community are Mac based, so there's a bigger return for them to throw stuff into the M1s. That's it. There were a few more lovely little additions, customizable. They've made the UI further customizable, which I'm not sure I agree with how they've implemented it, but it is kind of cool. And they've also...
We'll touch on that in a bit, because we do actually have to get what our video's named about. But first, God of Metal. Let's intro... Dylan's picking out an interface, because he needs a new one. And so we're going to go through the things you look for. And I kind of want to do this in a couple segments. So the beginner stuff, some of the intermediate, some of the prosumer, and then the pro. So we're going to start a beginner. And the great way to start this is with God of Metal asking, what do you think about the cheapest Behringer audio interface, the Behringer Euphoria UMC 202 HD? Now, here's the big thing about interfaces is... Only
one big thing about it.
Well, okay, at this price point, the big thing about interfaces is your sample rate, bit depth, obviously, but it's also the EIN of an interface. At this price point, you need to make sure it's quiet and it does better than 16
bit.
Yeah, 16-bit. Sorry, wow. 44.1. It needs to do better than that.
Well, okay, 44.1 is fine. 16-bit, no.
Okay.
Especially if you're not confident in what you're doing, which a lot of people are.
But God of Metal is probably recording music, so 16-bit, 44.1 probably isn't great.
No, 24-bit for sure, and it's honestly, I mean, with a decent interface like a 2i2 or something in that price range, it's not hard to find 24-bit. No. In the super cheap, like how expensive is the Behringer? Let's start
it's
there.
It's the cheapest Behringer available.
So it's obviously like $50 around.
So let's look at that. Let's look at the specs for that. You keep talking about what makes this stuff. Okay. UMC
so I think
22.
One thing that's really important to understand about an interface, in order to get, like when you're looking at a spec sheet for an interface, is an interface really is a combination of things. An interface is converters, an interface is preamps, an interface is a global section, a monitor section of some sort. There's a lot of different pieces that make up an interface, and all of them have their own sort of specifications. They're all just interconnected. So when they're talking about equivalent input noise, it's usually pertaining to the microphone pre's inside the interface. Converters, it's not usually a big deal. With converters, you generally just talk about it as dynamic range.
Yep.
Some converters, some of the pricey converters will have a separate thing for EIN, but that's kind of dumb because they could just say dynamic range, and it's like, okay, well, dynamic range, so I just have to take the highest level that it can take and subtract, whatever, 121 dB, whatever the dynamic range is, and I'll have my noise. But so what do you got?
Bangs actually filled in. The M-Track Solo is better than the UMC 22 or UM2. The UMC 22 and UM2 is 16-bit and great EIN. The M-Track Solo is 50, still 16-bit. And that's the thing. Is it worth it for somebody getting into audio to skip over the bare bones entry-level interface to try to get the 24-bit? Or the 48 kilohertz sample rate?
I have always been a believer in the idea that don't buy cheap because you're just going to end up spending more money replacing it in 2 years anyway. So save, a little bit. Save, wait maybe a year. Spend the extra $50, $150. Get the one that's going to last you longer. I think future-proofing your setup as much as you can is, which is something I'm going to talk about further. But you got to do that.
There's one thing that goes along with that I touch on in my videos, but nobody seems to get is the resaleability as well. Behringer, any Behringer product's going to sell for a lot less than a Scarlett product in resale. And resale, you will get more money back, and you will upgrade a Scarlett. If you're running a studio, you're not going to stay with your Scarlett the whole time. You're going to get something better, something with better pre's, something that has better gain, whatever the case is. So that is a big one that you really should consider when you're looking at your preamps, is the resaleability. So you go.
Me go.
Well, okay, so so from a really cheap perspective, you're looking for something that'll give you the bare minimum.
If you're looking for something that, no real bells and whistles, you want something with, at least one input and two outputs, obviously. That's kind of a given. Unless you're just a producer. If you're just a producer, there are interfaces out there that are literally just DA converters, that you plug monitors into, no inputs. I still think it's a good idea to have an interface with at least one input in case you need to record some weird, Foley sounds or something. I don't know. And again, it's, you're going to go further out of your way to get something with no inputs than you are to get something with one or two inputs. So that, I would say, EIN, the higher the better, right? So if you can get something with like 100, if you get something with, I'd say at least like 110, negative 110, that's about, the Scarlett's 108.
Yeah.
So if 110 is good. If you get something that's like 130,
the
better.
3rd gen Scarletts are better than 108. They must be.
I looked them up. They're 108.
Scarlett Solo's 108? Did I
well, the 2i2 is 108. I don't know the Solo.
2i2 EIN.
3rd gen. Gen 3.
128. Neg 128.
Where did I see that then? I was literally just on their website like an hour ago.
That was probably a 2nd gen because
it was specifically the 3rd gen. Let me see. I may have gain range. EIN. Oh no, yeah, 128. You're right.
So let's go really quick here. Bangs is filling in the group on, unless you're a podcaster and have specific reasons, the P4 example. That's also a great example. Your use case for your interface does matter. If you're a podcaster and 16-bit doesn't matter because you're a podcaster and you're recording voice, the P4 is a great option. But if you are a musician, a P4 doesn't do you a lick of good.
I was looking at the line output dynamic range, which is 108, which is actually horrible.
Vayli D says some people have to save too long instead of start doing something. That's also part of the, it depends on what you're doing. If you want to start a band and you don't have a guitar, you need to buy a guitar. You go out and buy a cheap guitar. And yes, there is something to be said about just get something and start recording. When I look at the progress, or when I look at some of what we're telling you, it's on the premise that you have at least a base amount to be able to spend. You don't need to go out and buy an SM7B. And that's what a lot of people think. Okay, I'll get an SM7B and I'm going to get a Behringer, and that'll be fine. Why don't you get an SM58 and buy a Scarlett then, so you have a better shot at things? Because a lot of people's budgetary, you're just telling me to buy the nice stuff. Well, why are you sitting there with an SM7B? Why did you go and buy a $400 microphone when you didn't need to? So I think it's,
live within your means. I heard somebody say that this week, and I was like, yeah, no, that's true. I mean, going out and buying, managing your budget accordingly, doing research like this, figuring out, okay, does a 58 sound close enough to a 7B? Yeah. Is it a lot cheaper? Yeah.
Well,
does it work with more interfaces? Yeah.
And that's usually the argument I get from a lot of people who are like, well, I don't have much to spend. How much did you spend on a microphone? Because the microphone is important, but beyond a certain point, like the XM8500, as much as you might not like Behringer microphones, it's ubiquitous. as the perfect entry-level microphone for starting out as a podcaster or even singers. You can sing into that microphone and get audio out that needs to be
Yeah,
EQ'd.
it is a transducer. It's a pressure gradient transducer. It does its job.
But then when you decide to give more money towards the microphone than the interface, you're already doing yourself a disservice. So sometimes it's always best to ask, well, what's your budget and what do you already have? So to be fair, Bang says the small Tascam recorders are negative 108 dBU.
That's why I brought this out. I'm like, yeah, no, this thing isn't great.
Yeah, no,
I use it to record ideas. It's basically my dictaphone, and that's it. That's all. Its only purpose in life.
Yeah, I got the Zoom H5. It's neg 121 dB, which is still a little bit noisy.
It's a little noisy, but considering it's portable and at the price point that it's at, with the channels that it's at, it's pretty good. I mean,
M-Track Solo and the XM8500 is better than just getting a cheap USB mic for streaming. Amen to that.
Yep.
Gear Junkie 35. Never seen you on the stream, buddy. Welcome. Or
Welcome.
I don't think I've seen Gear Junkie 35. Lexicon Omega 6-in, 2 XLR ins with inserts, 4 mono line in, MIDI in out, $50 used all day, 24-bit, 44.1, 48 Reaper Audacity friendly. Well, all DAWs are going to be friendly to.
Yeah, well, as long as they've got the
drivers.
either ASIO, as you call it, ASIO as I call it, as long as it's got some kind of good driver configuration. Man, Lexicon, though, I got to say, man, I'm getting nostalgia. I haven't seen that Lexicon name in years.
Gear Junkie says old Behringer mixers are excellent, dead quiet. I would disagree with the dead quiet on that.
I can corroborate that. I think they're called the Xenix.
Oh, the
Behringer
Xenix
line.
series. No,
I had
the Xenix. It was not dead quiet.
The only bad thing about the Xenix things is their stupid proprietary power supply. Yeah. I hate that they did. I don't think they do that now. I haven't invested in Behringer in a while, but yeah.
Gear Junkie says ASIO for all or ASIO for all. ASIO for all is, well, okay. So if you have a Mackie board that is just a 2-in, 2-out, or an 8-in, 2-out, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
ASIO for all is fantastic, but I will never choose ASIO for all over proprietary drivers.
The latency is crap.
Oh, it's brutal.
Yeah.
My new mic cost me about €100. It's the Sennheiser E845, but it still needs to ship. That is a really nice microphone. The Sennheiser
you can't go wrong.
E845.
Let's be honest. You can't go wrong with Sennheiser. I mean, they're one of the industry heavyweights right now. I mean, they own Neumann. They own several amazing pro audio brands. Their factories, their quality control is unmatched.
Jan brings up a good point. I got most of my stuff second hand to keep the cost down.
There you go.
This only cost me $299 Canadian, which is a $400 microphone in Canada.
I haven't bought a lot secondhand. With microphones, I'm generally a little bit weary because somebody else has got their spit and smoke breath in it.
You give it a smell before you give them the money.
Give it a smell. Yeah. Well, this RE20, this is secondhand, and I remember when I didn't buy it. Thankfully, it was given to me. But I posted on Instagram. I literally had pieces of foam falling out of it because of how obliterated it was.
It was 20 years old as well.
Yeah. That said, I have a word clock that is secondhand, and it was something at one of our music store chains in Canada that has really good Long and McQuaid has really amazing secondhand prices on a lot of stuff. If you go in the right time, and I got this thing for less than half off. I think it was like $600. Normally, it's like $1,900. For a word clock.
Yeah, nice.
And it's fine. There was like a small nick on the front panel, but it doesn't process sound.
It's
whatever.
A word clock.
Yeah, it's a word clock. It's a word
God
clock.
of Metal says, I haven't had a problem yet with the UMC 202 HD, but we'll see in the future. And yeah, as much as I don't like Behringer, that doesn't matter for what you're using it for. If it works for you and it's good, use a Behringer.
Yep.
Our opinions are going to easily get in the way of our recommendations, and they always will. And that's just a human nature trait.
Ultimately, you can do as much research as you want. You're going to have to make the decision for yourself. You can't rely on anybody else, whether it's us, whether it's Alan Parsons. You can't rely on anybody else to tell you what your ears think, right?
Yeah.
So I quickly want to talk about, just as a precursor to the rest of the discussion, as why I'm looking into another interface, which is really an important point that ties into what you need to look for in an interface. So just to be clear, I'm not looking for a new interface specifically. I'm looking for new converters because I don't use an interface in the traditional sense. My preamps are separate from my converters, so it's not really a single, all-in-one solution. But so I use a MADI converter from SSL, which is a lineup that they came up with years ago, the Alpha Link series of converters, interfaces. And the reason why I'm looking for another solution is it's very clear to me now that SSL has they launched their MADI card. For those who don't know, MADI is another type of protocol. It uses either coax, so just regular cable, or optical, to send 64 channels in, 64 channels out. So it's a very high speed, high baud, multi-channel audio solution that goes all the way up to 192K. Really good protocol that's used in live boards and all kinds of stuff. They put out a MADI card, PCI Express card, that was MADI, that had MADI optical in, which was like, okay, works great. They clearly weren't very serious about it because they haven't, and again, I love SSL, so it's really hard for me to shit on them. But they weren't very serious about it because they haven't updated the driver since 2008.
Oh, wow. Maybe maybe it just works. Maybe it's just fantastic.
It doesn't. Well, so I will say this: the first time I installed it, because they essentially scavenged Soundscapes, because that's the SSL Soundscape. So I'm assuming they bought Soundscape and they scavenged a bunch of their assets and made their kind of own digital hardware out of it. The thing about digital hardware is you have to keep on it. You have to have a team dedicated to maintaining the software and keeping tabs on what the operating system industry and what the DAW industry is doing, so you can make changes. Yeah. They obviously haven't been doing that, and needless to say, the MADI card that I use, the PCI card that I use, is no longer on the market. Oh. So it's obvious that SSL said, So what I'm essentially looking for now, and this is a really important thing, is to future-proof your interface. Invest in a protocol that will keep going. Invest in a company that's very serious about this product, like Scarlett, for example. The 2i2 accounts for a good percentage of their bottom line. Oh, yeah. So Scarlett or Focusrite will continue to invest in R&D and in software development to keep those drivers up to snuff, because there's a bunch of people using them. If you buy some niche product by a company that this isn't their thing, there's a chance that in a few years you're probably going to run into a brick wall.
There's also a reason why radio stations don't move OSs. Like I was
Studios
at a radio
as well.
Yeah, I was at a radio station that was still running Windows 95.
Yep. Because reliability matters more than the next best thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Really quick. Bang, Samsung owns AKG now. I'm not sure why that came up. Gonna have to sub. Dig this content. Behringer mixer, Eurotrack, MX200 4A, 8XLR in 20 total in 4 out 6 bus. So quiet. I've never used the Eurotrack MX200 4A, whatever it is. Divyesh, I have a burning question. Can I use a Focusrite Solo 3 with my Android phone for apps like StarMaker and Smool?
I've heard you can. I've never tried it, so I can't speak to it personally. But I was at one point researching interfaces for phones, and you can apparently, I've heard you can plug in a Scarlett and have it work with a mobile, like an Android
device. I know it
device.
does on iOS, and even Bang said that iOS devices, yes, if you use a USB hub. I've never dabbled with cell phone recording through an interface. If there's somebody else in the chat that knows about Android, that'd be great. Valley D, I have a mixer, Behringer XR18, and a new PreSonus mixer. Trust me, the Behringer is not quiet at all in comparison. I've never used the XR18. PreSonus mixers are pretty good at quiet.
When they don't die.
Yeah, when they don't blow up. Divyesh, Score. All these new names. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for coming. You can, using a 5-volt power USB hub and using an OTG cable to connect to the phone. However, using iOS is easier using GarageBand, which gives you feedback. That's actually a good point. iOS is so much better for creators when you're running small, when you're running GarageBand, it's iOS is just flat out made for it. I love that aspect of it. I'm never going over to an Apple phone though. I love vintage rough gem gear. Vintage gear is something I haven't been getting into because I can't afford it.
Yeah, it's a pricey rabbit hole to fall into. I've gotten into it a little bit, not to the degree that some of my compadres have, but yeah, it is a pricey rabbit hole.
I've used mixer out into headphone in. Oh wow, yeah, that should work. That's
provided your system's headphone in is decently shielded. A lot of laptops do not have good headphone.
Well, you're saying phone, so headphone in on phone.
Headphone in.
Yeah, right out. That would work.
So, but wait, hang on. Let's address headphone in.
Well, you can get the dongle. You can get this USB-C to dongle for a headphone in.
You mean line in?
Well, yeah. I mean, oh, come on. Don't do this now.
Headphones don't. Headphones are out
you're
only.
Just being difficult. Damn it.
Headphones are out only.
Oh, yeah, but the headphone combo jack on a phone. Yes. It's headphone. Yeah, yeah, okay. Good. Just, I use an iPhone with GarageBand using powered USB hub. Many apps cannot use USB interfaces. Skype on iOS and phone app go analog with iRig. iRig is a great option for that stuff too.
I also use something for anyone looking for a decent interface for an Android or an iPhone is I've got this weird device called a Saramonic Smart Rig Plus.
Nice.
And it is a mic preamp that is just analog, just goes into your phones. You can get one that's Thunderbolt micro, I think, but I just use the quarter-inch TRRS port, and its noise isn't bad. I wouldn't run an SM7 on it, but it's got built-in battery-powered phantom power.
Nice.
So it's 9 volt that'll run a phantom power mic. The noise isn't bad. I've recorded several videos to Instagram, either plugging a board into it because it will accommodate. The resistance allows it to accommodate line level devices, which iPhone and I don't know about Android, but iOS devices have a real problem when you try to plug in line level devices into the mic port. Yeah. It doesn't click in. Just spoiler alert. You need some kind of resistance in line, otherwise it'll be like there's no mic plugged in here. But no, it's a great little device. It's like $100, $120, and it solves a problem. So.
Shipman Media, do you guys use cloud lifters? Oh God. No, actually, we have interfaces that have no problem. Well, Dylan's got a setup, not an interface. Dylan has no problem powering any microphone you need. Dylan, do you want to do the quick?
Avoid cloud lifters. The thing about cloud lifters is.
No, I will say this. Cloud lifters.
I will say this in addition to our earlier points that a lot of people missed, I'm sure. But the thing about cloud lifters is, yes, they are expensive, but for the price that you're going to probably end up paying for a good, well-designed, discrete circuit preamp with the same gain equivalence that you're going to get from adding a cloud lifter to like 65, 70 dB of gain, you're going to be paying over $1,000 for a preamp that is good, that has that kind of gain specificity. So I would say that, yeah, if you, for some reason, really need to drive an SM7, at that point I would say, why are you buying an SM7? But that's a whole other conversation. But yeah, I'd say your first line of defense, if you have that mic and you really need something good that sounds great to power it, look for good, discrete preamps with good gain. That should be your first thing. If it's too expensive, then go to a cloud lifter. But maybe at that point, auction off your SM7 and get a 58. Like,
no kidding. Really quick now, we're still kind of going into all the interfaces here. So your setup, we've kind of gone over that. Now, if you're looking for a mid-range interface, now we've already gone over the entry-level crap. When I say crap lovingly. You're looking at a little bit more than 44.1. You're looking at more than 16-bit. But when you get into mid-range, that stuff is you should be having decent sample rate, good bit depth. So what are you looking for?
If you're looking for mid-range, you're probably looking for mid-range for a couple of reasons. One, you're looking for mid-range because you're doing like a podcast or a show that has multiple people, at which point you're looking for channel count.
Yep.
Or you're a musician and you're recording instruments, which are going to require a few things. One is as low an EIN as possible, because instruments are much quieter generally than the human voice. You're also going to look for some interesting routing features. There are certain interfaces, the Scarlett's a good example of this actually, that have their included drivers include a pretty powerful mix engine that you can use to route signals around. You can use to add, DSP effects before your DAW to save on processing power. Little things like that give you more flexibility with your workflow. For example, one thing that you're going to look for in a mid-range interface is latency, or I should say a lack of latency, because this is something I actually watched that, for anyone that follows Dave Rat on YouTube, a really awesome live sound engineer and just general audio guru all in all. He did a video talking about the psychological difference just a millisecond makes between when you hear a signal coming back into your headphones versus when you say it or when you make the sound. It has a huge psychological impact. Even 0 milliseconds to 1 milliseconds latency has a really big impact on your performance and how you're perceiving how you're sounding in real time, which is kind of a direct workpiece indicator to your performance, blah, 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 blah. So a big way to combat that is, what protocol are you using? Are you using USB 2? Don't use USB 2. USB 2 is bad news bears. And don't get, and Aiden and I have talked about this before, do not get sucked into USB-C. USB-C is a plug, not a protocol. Yeah. It is not a protocol. You can have a USB-C interface that is still just humming along at USB 2, which has horrible bandwidth for audio. I would say USB 3, Thunderbolt is amazing. Thunderbolt, you can get your latency down to fractions of a millisecond. I'm looking at a few Thunderbolt interfaces right now that are very promising as far as latency, that can go down to like 4 samples latency.
Yeah.
Just for perspective, you're lucky if you get 256 samples out of a USB 2 interface. So look at latency, read reviews. Oftentimes latency isn't something that's discussed in a spec sheet. Because it depends on your DAW, it depends on your sample rate, it depends on your system to a degree. There's a lot of variables that lead to latency, but just look at reviews, people talking about what kind of latency they're getting. But if you're looking at a mid-range interface, I would say your focus should shift from your sample rate and your bit depth, or your sample rate and your sample size, to things like latency, things like input noise, dynamic range, flexibility of the software component of it. All those things.
What I love is this AudioFuse Studio, this ridiculously priced interface, is still USB 2.0.
Well, but it's not that many. It's not that many channels, which is the other thing. Obviously, the more channels,
it's 18 channels, man.
Well, yeah, but you're not using all 18.
No, I'm not using all 18 channels.
Yeah, so usually most interfaces, just for people to know, most interfaces, like for example, in my case, I'm on MADI, and MADI is serial interfaces. Most interfaces are. It uses a serial protocol. There's no parallel stuff going on. It's one optical cable, and it's got 64 channels back and forth over one optical connection. Well, one round trip optical connection. But so in my case, I've actually reduced my interface down to 56 channels instead of 64, so that it's operating on like each channel gets sent in less time.
Yeah.
It's cutting off that extra 8 channels that I'm not using anyway.
Ooh, Shipman Media just had a great question. Now I'm guessing Shipman Media is US, so this is in US funds, okay? You have $1,000 to buy a microphone and an interface. Which one do you buy? Now, I'm going to assume Shipman Media is talking about for spoken word. That's what we're going to assume. Mm-hmm. It's for spoken word in a relatively well-treated environment. That's because, if you're doing music, that might be a different microphone. If you're doing spoken word, it'd be different. If you're podcasting, $1,000 is way more than you actually need to spend. Oh, he says correct, spoken word. So $1,000 for spoken word, possibly voiceover, microphone, and interface. I know that's tough, eh?
Well, again, I would say an interface for spoken word stuff with the Scarlett series, I wouldn't necessarily go with the 2i2. If that's your budget, you might, the 2i4. There some of the
2i4 is nice.
Some of the better versions of the Scarlett not only have higher channel count, because that's what people focus on. It's like, well, I don't need 4 channels. Why would I get the 2i4? It's like, well, it doesn't just have 4 channels. It actually has better specifications in other parts of that white paper than the 2i2 does. But I would say, 2i2, you could get away with that. I would dedicate a good chunk of that to the mic. So for a microphone, I would say something like an NT2A. That wouldn't be my personal choice, but the NT2A would be a great flexible solution. I might go for a P420. That's a good option.
You're still staying way under budget too. You could literally.
Well, I know I'm leaving room for the interface, so you have flexibility to go with like an 8i6 or a 2i4. If you need it, 8i6 is pushing it.
SSL 4K.
Oh boy. Oh boy. We're getting back into SSL.
Well, SSL does some really nice stuff. I've never heard
They
of
do. Here's the thing about SSL.
Oh, SSL, yeah.
I have a lot of experience with that company, both with their stupidly high range products like their Awesomation AWS 900 Plus consoles, their J9000 board, their Duality board, as well as their rack mount gear like their Alpha Link, series of interfaces. SSL doesn't do digital. SSL has, just for people to know what they're known for and how they've developed their name. They've developed their name for mixing boards. And the reason that they get good rep for mixing boards is their compressors are great. Their EQs are awesome. Their mixers, more than those things, are known for their flexibility. I've used a lot of SSL boards, and the way that you can, on a relatively analog board, throw signals around from this place to that place, they've made their boards stupid flexible. That's how their company got their name. They scavenged Soundscape and tried to make some digital stuff.
Their 2 and 2 Plus are fantastic. I do have to say
and
that.
the SSL 6, the like S lowercase I, like capital S lowercase I capital X interface is good as well. I've heard some good things about it, but these things are very overpriced. What was the one we were talking about? Not the 6, but the
4X is the
4X.
airy boost they have on it.
The 4X isn't bad price wise, considering it's SSL. It's not actually that bad. But again, I still think even with that, you're paying for a bit of the name, because a lot of for SSL's digital stuff, they are outsourcing their conversion technology to an outside company. Like
I wonder who does that.
I have an Audient set of mic preamps.
Yeah.
And my SSL converters, they use the same conversion chip. My Audient pre's have a ADAT light pipe output, which is using the same conversion chip as my, $2,000 converters.
Nice.
So I'm going to SSL. What the fuck?
I would say go with an Audio Fuse, which brings you, I think, the $500 mark.
But not the studio, just the regular.
Yeah, the small Audio Fuse. It's like a little furnace for your room too for the winter. And probably the NT2A is good. It's a little bright. Depends on your voice.
So
if you want,
what is the Audio Fuse? What does it go for? 500? You said?
I think it's about $499. I think so.
So if you can get it on sale, the Sennheiser Mark 8 or the MK8. The MK4 is a really good mic. I used that in my studio at work for the last 3 years, and the MK4 is a really, really nice sounding mic for $400.
Oh, those ones are nice.
Yeah, I would maybe go for that. I would maybe go for the Audio Fuse and the MK4.
Yeah, that's just squeaking in under $1,000 though.
I know, that's why, right?
But those are some pretty good choices. If you want to go dynamic, what would you like with the Audio Fuse? You've got tons of gain.
Yeah, you do. That's right. So,
MixPre 3 too. Oh yeah, the MixPre 3.
It's hard. I might go something weird like a Sennheiser original 421 if you can find one.
Yeah, they're all over the place. They are literally all over the place. I've seen them everywhere.
The original. The new ones aren't the same as the old ones. So you got to find. It's kind of like those pretentious people that tell you to go. Oh, the U87AI. It's not like a U87. You got to go get the original, man. It's with smoke breath from some British recording studio for the last 40 years.
Radio stations throw them out now. That's why they seem to be everywhere. I would say an RE20 would get you in under budget as well. The 27 might take you a little bit close to budget. Yeah, those are the ones that I would say if you're going dynamic. The 320 is cheaper, a little bit
You
of a
love
brighter
the
high end.
320.
I do. Well, it sounds fantastic. I did the shootout between the 320 and the SM7B, and I preferred the audio from the 320, man.
I don't find the 320 is pleasant. It is bright in a pleasant way. I find it's very present. It's got a nice bump around the 2 to 4K mark, but it's not shiny. It's just sibilant.
Yeah, I guess it depends on the voice it's going in, but yeah.
Yes,
The
like any
320
mic.
is brighter. It is
Like
very
any
much
mic.
brighter.
Like there are some mics, again, there's some mics that you put a Telefunken U47 Redux in front of them and they sound horrible, but you put a 414 in front of them and they sound amazing. So
Yeah. Now, that's a good question, though. The $1,000 mark. That's kind of the dream setup, though. Grand is more than enough to get.
yeah, I think a grand is actually a good number, more than enough to start out with.
From
but
a
to get a
studio
good
perspective.
to get a good professional setup, yeah, $1,000. Even less than that, you could probably get away with. Like again, if you get a 2i2 and a NT2A, which will take you what, $700?
Yeah, then not even. That's Canadian,
Yeah.
man. You got to remember.
Yeah,
That's
so like American, $500, like you could probably get away with that. But yeah, $1,000, you're laughing.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like when we look at the Canadian funds, I spent on my first setup was an RE320 and a 2i2. Very, very first. And it was fantastic for what it was, despite the 2i2 having, I think it was first gen. So it wasn't the greatest quality. It was a good showing from Scarlett, but the pre's needed a little bit of work. But yeah, I mean, that's a decent amount of money to spend. Now I'm looking at my next interface being probably around $1,500.
Somebody posed a similar question to me years ago, and this took some prep, but they said, okay, you build a recording studio, $1 million, go. I'm like, okay, well, I got to Excel spreadsheet this shit, man.
How much would it cost to do a proper recording studio for doing albums? How much would it cost?
I would say proper is such a subjective term. I'd say if you want to get by with a good setup, $100,000.
Well, that's
be
cheaper than I thought it was.
Would probably be manageable. If you want an ideal setup, and again, like you got to consider that for a proper studio, whatever your budget is, 20% of that is cables. So if you got $1 million budget, you're going to be spending $200,000 on cables. Which is because a lot of it in a professional studio, and this is something that in the radio industry they still laugh at because it's not how it works anymore. Radio and broadcast has gone full digital. Like AES 67 Livewire is what everybody's using now, audio over IP, which works great and is stupid reliable, which makes me mad because it's too easy. It's too easy. It needs to be harder to be that good. But in a professional studio in this day and age, as it's been for the last 50 years, you have patch bays.
Bank says you buy all Behringer and pocket the remaining $980,000 as consulting fees. We got a Xenix Q502 as your mixing console.
No, but I mean, like I'd say for a big studio, right? For a big studio, your biggest focus is going to be your box, so your system whatever DAW you're using, because most studios are digital. That's just the way it is. And your centerpiece, your board. What can your board do? Can your board do a lot? Like, how big your patch bay needs to be? And patch bays are very expensive. You can spend like $1,000 on one 96-point Bantam patch bay. Yeah, and they don't do anything. They're the assholes of all your equipment.
Yeah,
exactly. They're the assholes of all your equipment right in front of you. That's all they are, and you can spend $1,000 on them, like a decent switchcraft.
Vayli D wants to know why no one uses dynamic microphones in studio for singing, and that's actually a misnomer.
Lots of people do.
Yeah, the RE20 that Dylan's using has been used by Queen. Queen used the RE20 on several things.
The SM7 was used by Michael Jackson, was used by George Michael, Taylor Swift. There's a ton of people that use this mic all the time. Well, not anymore because the ones I just mentioned are dead for the most part, but with the exception of one. With the exception of one.
Generally speaking, the reason dynamics aren't reached for first is because of their dynamic range and their frequency range.
Yeah, it's also the frequency responses. As much as dynamic mics tend to be flatter, which is something that you would think people would go for more, the extra sheen, not the Charlie, but that extra sheen that condenser, a good condenser, adds is something that a lot of people look after. That texture, that high-end texture, that condenser, that large diaphragm. Small diaphragms don't generally have this, but large diaphragm condenser mics have that smooth high-end texture.
Yeah, and
if you buy a good
Bang
one.
says it depends on the singer. Quiet, detailed singing is better on a condenser. That's true.
Absolutely, because you get more response. You get more of a flowy
Dynamic
response in your low end.
Yeah.
Whereas with a dynamic mic, you're combating some other things. It's a rougher texture.
Yeah. Dynamics are sort of pre-compressed, kind of. I guess that's one way to look at it. If you're singing into an RE20, it creates its own gain.
I mean, every mic kind of does. That's
Yeah.
kind of their job. They turn sound pressure changes into electricity.
Yeah, it's tough with dynamics if you don't have the guts to push it and you don't want a bunch of noise on your audio. You're pretty much stuck with doing condensers but condensers also that frequency range is good for guitars, is good for pianos. It's good for all this stuff that the voice can't replicate. So
yeah, it's all about texture. I mean, dynamic mics and condenser mics, these are paintbrushes, right? They're different texture strokes. That's what they are. So there's lots of instances where, like, you can use, as much as it's not common anymore, you can use a couple of dynamic mics on an acoustic guitar.
Oh, Joseph said moving coil mics are better if louder source is what he means. Yeah, that's true.
Yes,
much
absolutely.
higher SPL, yes.
They react better to louder things. Like, would I put a condenser mic inside a metal kick drum with an acrylic batter? No.
Bangs is just trying to piss you off now. Plus, it's easier to cup an SM58 like all the professionals do. Not make it sound better, producer.
Well, I mean, don't laugh. I mean, there are mics. Obviously, there's that Shure mic that's specific, the Bullet, that's specifically designed to cup your hands around for harmonica playing. So
not the SM58 though.
No,
sing into it like the Pope. Yeah. Shipman, what brand do you guys absolutely refuse to buy? Behringer.
Well,
PreSonus.
PreSonus.
I did a video about a year back where my PreSonus AR8 blew up.
Yeah, I have owned several PreSonus products to date. All of them within not reasonable time from purchase had some sort of failure. Some resulted in a catastrophic failure. They're completely unusable. Others, it's like, well, it's annoying, but it works.
Yeah.
I will say PreSonus's quality control, in my experience and in Aiden's experience, is bad.
It's also their capping. The capacitors they use in that, and that's not quality control. That is ignorance and cheap capacitors.
Well, I mean, they are not controlling their quality very well.
Well, yeah,
so in a sense, I mean, it's not. It doesn't have anything to do with beta testing a product.
I would buy it when it comes to microphones and interfaces. I would buy a Behringer before I'd buy another PreSonus. And that sounds sad, but I can't, like, for the amount that I spent on my AR8, I expect it to last more than 18 months. And the amount of hoops I had to jump through to get that replaced and get that fixed, I did to fix it myself.
Oh,
They
man,
sent me the board.
It's a good thing you changed that from loops to hoops. Like, completely different meaning.
You know what I mean.
No, but I would say this as well. Behringer, over the last 10 years, has gotten into some, lower tier professional gear, like the X32, the S16 Snakehead.
Well,
These are...
And they now own Aston. So they now have some mid-range tier microphones in their... So it's really hard to say, like, I don't recommend Behringer, but then I just went out and bought an Aston Stealth.
No, like the I will say this, as much as a lot of Behringer stuff, like, I would never recommend, the X32, which I've used in a studio context and in a big budget live context, that board is amazing. It sounds great. It's stupid flexible. It's so easy to use.
Yeah.
You can't beat it for the price point of what I think it's like $3,200. You can't beat that as far as what that board has to offer. Mind you, most people would say $3,200. What the fuck?
Bangs hates suggesting MXL, and everybody keeps bugging me. Dude, you got to do the MXL 770. You got to review it. It's great. It's a great mic. And I look at it and I'm like, I've heard so many people that have used it. And here's the one thing about a microphone that makes you go, is it going to be a great microphone? Are they keeping it when they buy a second microphone? When they go out and buy an AKG P420, are they keeping the MXL? No, none of them do. They're all over social media. They're all over marketplaces and stuff like that. That usually tells me the microphone's not good. Like if you're not even willing to hold it in your, put it up on a shelf somewhere, and you're going to just make $20 off it, usually tells me it's not going to be great. Self noise of 20 dB. Yeah, that's the line. Shipment Media says, dude, I swear I had PreSonus on my mind. I never even heard you guys talk about it. That's why I asked. That's hilarious. And you know what the worst part about PreSonus is I called them because they released a microphone. The PreSonus, kind of the answer to the everyone's releasing a microphone now. Like Scarlett did it, everything. So the PD1, I think it's called. So I called PreSonus and I said, hey, can I get a test model? Can I send it down to me? I'll send it back to you just so I can do the tests on it and do a video. And so like, well, want to look at your channel? And they went through the channel and they said, well, you're not very positive for PreSonus, so we're not going to send it to you.
You know what? That's fair. I mean, that's fair.
No, it's not fair. It's $100 microphone. It's a cheap piece of crap.
I will say, like, anything that you've said about PreSonus is also fair. But as a business, for them to say what they said, I would say if I was them, I would have said the same thing.
You know the worst part? I watched a lot of other people review the PreSonus PD1, and they're like, "This is a good mic. This is pretty good for what you're paying for." And each one of those videos started with, PreSonus sent me this microphone, but my review is my own. And it's like, okay, so when there's nothing negative to be said about a $100 microphone, and there's usually at least something that you can pick up on. Usually something. Not every $100 microphone is a unicorn microphone.
No.
Ever. I own an MXL 990, but I use a Rode. Yeah. Right? I don't think I'm going to buy one. Eventually I'll get around to it, but I'm trying to spend my money on stuff that I kind of wouldn't mind keeping in the studio as well. And that, I mean, like the Aston Stealth. I don't mind holding on to this. I don't mind holding on to a microphone that I might be able to mic a guitar with or something like that. The MXLs, I don't think I'm going to purchase one of those in the near future. I do want to get into more interfaces though.
So speaking of which, getting back to interfaces, I think... I think there's like a few other points that I would say is, again, we were talking about mic preamps and gain. So the preamp part of an interface, I'd say you want at least 55 dB of gain. A lot of people say 60. They're only saying 60 because of this fucker. This is the only reason they're saying. There's the only reason they're saying 60. I would say for most microphones, other than those that don't have transformers in, I hope that guy that said that comment is on this stream right now because I want to throw down about that.
I don't think he ever
came back
to my channel. No.
So I say 50 to 55 dB of gain. And the reason I say that is because if you say 60, 65, 75 dB of gain, you're really kneecapping your choices.
Yeah.
Because most interfaces now are targeting the 45 to 55 gain range kind of area because condenser mics are what everyone's targeting now. So I would say that. Then the last thing that I will say, and this is an important thing to consider with interfaces too, is expandable I/O.
Oh, yeah.
So there's interfaces, and people probably see it, and they're like, "What the hell is this?" Like interfaces that offer, AS3 or AES3, SPDIF, Toslink, whether it's LightPipe or SPDIF, or things like even some interfaces have MADI and AES67 coax and optical inputs and Ethernet. Those are really useful because if you decide, like, if the interface has those kinds of things, chances are it's a good interface. Yes, ADAT, LightPipe.
Yeah.
And I will say for those things, those expandability options are great because you're not paying for the preamps and for the conversion circuitry right out of the gate. You're buying an interface that can support those. And then down the road, there's tons of rack mount 8 preamps that have ADAT outputs. So you can just plug those into your interface. Audient has one, the ID22, I think is the name of it. The Audient series of they're kind of like the AudioFuse. They're designed like a desktop sort of mount.
I've been considering them for my next one as long as they're more than USB 2. That's I've been
I don't know. I've never owned one. I don't know what they are, but I know everyone says good. And again, I've had a lot of experience with Audient as well. Their products, they make good stuff.
I just don't like the interface style. Like, I do prefer the AudioFuse Studio style to the Audient style, but
Which is what?
with the ID44 is what I'm referencing. That was the one that I was looking at.
Well, isn't that it's the same. It's a desktop.
Yeah,
sort
I
of
know,
sitting-
but it's the style, the knobs. I don't like the look of it as much.
You're going into there. I
It
thought you were talking about like
matters,
rack
man.
mount. They were talking about like rack mount versus. Well, yeah. Again, if it doesn't work for your workflow, that's definitely a selling point.
Here's a quick question. The first sound card was an Apogee one. That is a very expensive and overpriced interface. You guys, any thoughts on Apogee products? They are good.
Apogee stuffs are very. I
Yes.
have an Apogee. I have a Big Ben right here beside me, a word clock. Apogee stuff is great. I've used an AD16X, which is their analog to digital converter. They are one of the oldest in the converter market, but they're also the best, in my opinion. They're one of the best. The Apogee Rosetta back in the day, again, the AD16X, the
What
Symphony,
about like
I
the
think.
Duet?
Again, I would say the problem with Apogee is, again, it's good stuff, but you're paying for the brand. Apogee has some.
Thank you for saying that. I was
Again,
waiting for that.
it's like buying, a Gibson J200. As much as it's a guitar that plays really well, why is it $5,000? Because it's a Gibson. Are there guitars that are just as well made by a local luthier that are just as good, if not better, that are half the price? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But a lot of these brands you're paying for the brand, but in a sense that's also kind of an insurance policy.
Yeah, well,
Because
it's
you get reliability. Another good example of a company that we haven't, I think, talked about on this channel before is RME.
Yeah, Babyface Pro.
RME is known for converters and interfaces. They are also stupid expensive. In fact, when I acknowledged that my SSL MADI card was going to very soon become very out of date and start to compromise the reliability of my system, I was looking into RME makes a lot of PCI cards that have ADAT and have MADI. And I was looking at a MADI card and it was like $2,600 for a PCI card.
Wow.
But again, that's on par with what RME charges for their stuff.
Well, and that's the thing. What you're getting an RME product. That is what you trade off.
These RME's products are designed to be mission critical, just like Apogee's products are designed. They are designed to not fail because they're supposed to, and especially RME is designed for live sound stuff in a lot of cases. So they're designed like if your interface craps out halfway through a show for for back in the day for like Linkin Park or something.
Yeah.
You're fired. You're done.
Yep.
So reliability is a big deal, and that's why with a lot of these companies like Apogee or RME, you're paying, or even SSL to a degree, you're paying for reliability. If you've got Beyonce in a studio on your SSL AWS 900 Plus board, and your power supply conks out on your board, which for these boards, the power supply is usually a whole separate rack mount unit.
Yeah.
You're done, and your studio is probably done.
No kidding.
No one's gonna go there. So yeah.
Unusual Audio. A lot of people buy inline preamps because they think they're not allowed to turn their gain up to 100. On most preamps, you probably shouldn't turn it up to 100. Good example is the Zoom H5 that I have. As soon as you pass like 85% on that, it's a mess.
With a good interface, you can bring. I will say I avoid. Because you lose granularity. I mean, they always say that like 40% of your gain is in the last 10% of the knob twist, which is not inaccurate. Anyone who's ever, used a preamp like that will know that when you get to like the 430 mark on the knob and you just turn it like a quarter of a millimeter, it's like, wow, whoa, what the?
Yeah.
So I think avoiding that, because you lose control just from that point alone. And again, most preamps that are that low gain are going to have some noise issues anyway.
Bangs, doesn't the base Audient let you completely bypass the preamps for using an external?
Yep.
Yeah,
because they design it to go with the ASP 880 or the ASP 800, which are their external preamps, which use similar. They're more discrete circuits. I have the ASP 880 beside me, which my RE20 is going through right now, and it's it's a very low noise preamp. It's got 75 dB of gain. So more than capable of driving this bitch without any issues.
Really quick, Valley D, RME Hammerfall PCI 20 years and still working. Yeah, that's
Yep,
all right.
That's RME.
Did you see, this is from Bangs, did you see the Windows 11 hardware requirements?
Yes.
And are you updating your system? Because I think of all people, you're going to have to.
Well, in general, I'm looking at, because if I'm going to be going with the new interface that I'm looking at getting, which is a $5,600 interface, it is going to be Thunderbolt. It has USB 3,
Yeah.
but Thunderbolt has larger bandwidth. So, and it's 3.0, by the way, not 3.1 or 3.2, 3.0, which I'm like, guys, you came up with it last year. Piss off. Like we're screwing around with USB 3. Get USB 3.1 or 3.2, please. But so if I'm going to be using Thunderbolt, my motherboard does support a revision of PCI Express that will run Thunderbolt theoretically, but I would prefer to get a motherboard with either a built-in Thunderbolt port or that has like top line support for Thunderbolt.
It's TPM 2.0 is going to be necessary for secure boot. Are you capable of that with your current? No, you're not. You're not even close to capable of that with your current computer. If I
TPM
recall.
2.0?
Yeah.
Well, again, it's hard to say because this motherboard was ahead of its time. So though it's a
Oh,
2012
that is possible.
release,
Yeah.
Let me go up and open my motherboard application here and get the specs. My Asus Tech AI suite.
Bang says you can turn it up to 90 usually. Yeah, it's about 85, 90 where it just starts to get, I wouldn't say unusable. And that's the big thing. Like when I'm using my H5, I'm not doing mission critical work. Like I'm not recording voiceover with it. And like on the last video with the Cloud Lifter, you could really hear and I think I was at 80% with that, and you can hear the noise in the background in comparison. Is your H5's O2 on the dial completely unusable for you? I've used high and patted it down. Yeah, pretty much.
My H6 is same.
Also, Bill C10 passed the House of Commons last week, going to the Senate. Yes, I still don't think C10 is going to be as big of a issue for content creators as everyone else does. Everyone else is like, oh, this is their way of like controlling. If you are a Canadian content maker, creator, I think this is just going to be good for you.
Yeah, obviously, yeah.
Because that means that everything's going to be pushing your content in Canada. I have only about 2% of my audience in Canada. Everyone else is in the U.S. Everyone else is in the U.S. or UK. I've got some in Germany that are about the same as Canada, like about the same. But the majority of people that watch me are in the U.S. So if they decided that they were going to start pushing Canadian content to Canadians, that just means my audience grows. So we'll see whether or not Bill C10 is actually going to become problematic. I think it's going to be problematic for a lot of the larger companies, like the Netflixes. And
which I'm fine with. I mean, they've been operating in the Wild West for long enough. I think it's about time that they get on par with the rest of the media industry.
Especially when they have Netflix Canada, Netflix US. Canadian Netflix should have Canadian content.
You would think.
That's just how it is.
So this is weird. Okay, so I'm looking at my motherboard specs. So it does support TPM 2.0. The motherboard does.
Okay.
Which is I'm actually a little surprised. So yeah, this is the problem.
Yeah.
If you have an Intel CPU less than the 8000 series, and mine is the 3000 series for reference, you're in trouble. But again, I would have updated my system sooner, but right now, anything electronic is stupidly priced. So
also,
I'm waiting.
Intel really isn't coming to bat with anything much. Like
no,
they're really
I am kind of impressed with the 10,000. It's still not the microarchitecture that we're looking for, but
they need to get down to 10 millimeter.
Yeah,
or 10 millimeter. Oh my god!
I think the problem is why am I drawing a blank? The other company that makes
AMD.
AMD. I was gonna say API for some reason.
Close. They bought API.
So AMD outsources their manufacturing. smartly to
Yeah.
businesses that can manage it. Intel is still hell bent on making their own chips from scratch.
Well, they
and that's
have the
why
infrastructure, so they might as well
they-
use it.
Well, that's it. So, if Intel just bit the bullet and said, you know what, fuck it, we'll just make, we'll just outsource it like everyone else to
All
South
right.
Korea.
Speaking of that, Unusual says, not speaking of that, but we'll come back around to that in a second.
Horrible segue.
Unusual says, I disagree with that. I measured SNR on all my interfaces, and it's always best at 100%. I've never had an interface that had good SNR at 100%.
It depends on the interface.
Yeah.
That's highly dependent on the interface. That's
like
not
with
a one.
the H5, the noise is probably 20%.
Oh yeah. If you have a DigiDesign MBox 2, like shit, the SNR is going to be great at 100%.
I wonder what the SNR is on mine at 100%, the AudioFuse Studio. It's pretty damn quiet, neg 129 dBu.
Yeah. Well, again, that is a prosumer interface though. That's a high kind
Unusual
of.
says, I tested an SSL2 Evo 8. I still need to get an Evo 8. Rode AI 1, which none of them are super high end, but still, I've never even used the Rode AI 1. Then Bangs, circling around to what you were saying before, says 8th gen Intel CPUs right now are required. They're looking at allowing 7th gen, but the motherboard still needs support, which is not your issue.
Again, for me, I'm not planning on updating to Windows 11 anyway because I have a stable system and I value that over the next best thing. Plus, I don't trust Microsoft ever since they've pretty much moved over to a free model, and the amount of tweaking I'm going to have to do with Windows 11, just like I've had to do with Windows 10, so they don't take a bunch of my information. Is like I've lost a bit of trust for Microsoft since Windows 10 came out, and actually it really started with Windows 8, with with Microsoft mining everything that you do if you don't turn off 6,000 parameters.
God of Metal, am I the 0.1% that's in the Netherlands? I actually have a few people from the Netherlands.
We had someone here before.
Yeah, I just know a few of them that are in the chat. But if I were to go through the list of like what percentage people are from every country, I would probably it would take me a while because people from all over the world. But I think you're not the only one from the Netherlands. I can say that. Bang says C10 removed the independent creator exception. You will be regulated by the CRTC, but I have no concerns about being regulated by the CRTC because I'm a Canadian content producer.
You're a Canadian creator. Everything you got 100% CanCon basically.
And that's what I'm like when you look at being regulated by the CRTC to a degree, but what do you get back from that the CRTC offers, which their CanCon regulations did a lot to help out CanCon creators. That were they also regulated by the CRTC.
They also ended up, being responsible for the shutting down of several, legendary radio stations. But we won't get into that.
Valley says, "I am not. I am in the Caribbean." Nice. Oh, the Caribbean. Wouldn't that be nice? Wait, it's hot here. Never mind. Bangs.
So I'm just looking at my specs now, just for shits. My number one audience is States. My number two audience is actually Germany, which is interesting. Yeah.
That's fascinating. Okay, so if everyone wants to know what my audience is, let's do this here. So my audience, here we go. Top US. This is the last 2 weeks. I am going to do this for lifetime. Oh, let's do last year. Top United States is 35% of my views comes from the US, 5% from UK, 5% Canada, Germany is 4.5, India is 3.1, and then Australia, Philippines, France, Mexico, Indonesia, and Brazil. Netherlands is 1.4%. So that's actually a decent percentage of my views. Sweden, Spain, Russia. Well, I have Russia on here. And then the least that watches me, Pakistan does not, Vietnam hardly, Morocco hardly. And, New Zealand is at 0% and Ukraine as well. So that's my channel. The breakdown.
You got to get those ads running in New Zealand, man. You're losing out.
Julian Krause, this is what Bang said. Julian Krause did a video and came to the same conclusion that high gain is better. I'm going to have to watch the video.
Yeah, I'll have to watch the video too. My experience says otherwise.
Well, I mean, that's the one thing that total respect for Julian Krause. We'll see what Julian Krause has to say about that. I can't imagine on a Zoom H5 that high gain is going to be better. I can't. That's something that is counter.
So wait a minute. So let's go back to a point from last week. So with your lovely ISO mic, how are you gonna deal with that?
What do you mean?
where you can add pretty much zero gain without.
I don't know what that's going to do. Like, I don't. I'm
So
still
basically,
confused.
what we've learned is that judging from Julian Krause's conclusion and from a lot of people here's conclusion is the ISO mic is going to have a horrible SNR with most preamps.
I don't know. I'm really curious to see, and I can't even hook the bloody thing up because I don't have.
The part from.
Once I get the parts, I'll be able to kind of. But this is why I recorded a bunch of videos, because I have a whole bunch of exploring to do. Ohio is like the Caribbean, right? It's close. It's actually pretty close. Got a medal 103. Gonna boost the Dutch community. We need more percentage. Yeah, get the Dutch in on this.
Get her in.
Dated a Dutch girl once when I was like 16. She was.
Oh yeah.
Her grandmother did not like me. Apparently wearing Metallica shirts around her grandmother. They're very. They were very. Was it Catholic or Protestant? They were one of the two, and apparently neither one of them likes Metallica.
I think they're Protestant.
Valley
there.
D says, "What do you mean with 100% gain? Can you explain that? That means by turning your knob to 11
To 5 o'clock.
Yeah. So when you turn your gain up, like I can do that here. I'm gonna be really quiet here.
Oh, listen to that noise. It's mostly room noise, but I can hear myself in your headphones. Yes, see. Oh my god, that was loud. See, I could do that, but I got a compressor.
I was trying to whisper it. I was not trying to do that in a mean way. My apologies.
I know. I
was trying to.
I knew it was gonna be Armageddon because I could hear the room noise and I could hear myself in your headphones.
Yeah, I'm a sibilant SOB. I get that. When I go, it really comes out.
So wait, of all the sounds you could have chosen
yeah, sorry,
to whisper,
I guess I would have went.
chose, like knowing that you're a sibilant guy, you went
I'm
out of your way.
sorry.
to choose
Banks
sibilants.
says Dutch stick fingers in weird places. I never, and there's no weird place. Banks, come on. There's only good places, unless it's
We're
like
open-minded here.
ears or eyeballs, man. That's the only thing
Or
Canadians
I don't
are
know,
against.
or inside your hair follicles. That would be kind of weird.
Joseph Walters says, "What's really important? Go Habs, go Montreal Canadiens." I'm actually pulling for the Montreal Canadiens, despite being a Leafs fan. I don't care that much. So
See, I am just because I'm from out that way as you are, like closer to that direction. But here, like where I am now in the like southwestern Ontario bit, if you say Habs, you better be wearing a bulletproof vest, man.
yeah.
Like-
I came from Thunder Bay, where Habs. You're a Leafs fan or you're a Habs fan. If you're a Habs fan, you're out of the house.
Yeah.
God of Metal. I'm gonna make this the last question before we go. It's 6:30 and my dog's got to eat, and so do I. If you had to choose between the SM58 and the Sennheiser E845, which would you pick for studio and live, and why? Some people don't like the Sennheiser sound, the E835 or the E845. I believe the E845 is the super cardioid version of the E835. Some people don't like the presence boost in it. I do. It works for my voice quite a bit.
I do as well. I think you and I are probably gonna have the same answer here, which is the 845.
You and Dark Corner Studios will run around saying super cardioid. Yeah, no, it's true. I do like super cardioids. That bit is going to haunt me, and I'm going to be using that every time I do a super cardioid bit.
Yeah, stash that little piece of footage in the can.
It's really tough. Like I would say the SM58 is much flatter, much flatter. But I do find the Sennheiser line does accentuate my voice nicely, and I like it. There are some people that like flat out, I hate it, don't like it. So
it depends for what. I mean, I think for the for voice, I would choose the 845. The thing I like though about the SM58 is for my applications, it can double as an SM57 if I'm short one for some reason.
yeah.
It has a virtually identical frequency response to the SM57. So for instruments and things, because of its flatness, it's translatable.
I think that's kind of the goal there. Is the SM58 is one that you almost kind of have to buy anyways, So
At
if you're
some
going to
point.
start with something, you know you're not going to dislike the 58. You're not going to be like, oh, send it back. And there is a chance you might not like the E845. So
Yeah.
I would go sure there. Now, one last thing before, which one sounds better, cupped? Shipman Media wants to know what Dylan's channel is. Dylan?
I do not have a channel. I was
Not
going by Spotify metrics for my audience.
He'll be coming to YouTube at some point. He has promised me that he is planning on doing a channel. The other thing is, and this is something that we discussed a couple weeks back. I no longer, I'm going to be out of a day job as of January. So I'm finding ways to somehow go live and go full time with YouTube. And this is my thing. So I'm putting it out there. You guys can let me know in chat, or I'm also going to be doing a poll. I popped that P like a sumbitch, didn't I? I'm going to be doing a poll. If I put a join button on this channel, what perks would you want? That's the question.
Are you going Patreon?
No.
You're on Patreon.
I already did Patreon. I had 2 patrons. Not going to do that. I want to know, because you can do perks through YouTube. You can have a membership button. I have the option of doing a membership button, but when I look at the perks, I'm like, well, I don't know. What do you guys want? So if I were to put one up, I'm not saying I'm going to do it right now, but if I do, what kind of perks would you guys want? Because as much as I love, hey, get, $4 a month, great. But I do want to give something back for that. I don't want it to just be, give me all your money so I can do full-time YouTube. I would really like to make sure that this is a symbiotic relationship that somehow you get something from. And what I was considering was maybe taking the live stream to that. So if you want to watch the live stream, you become a member. But then I'm like, not everybody has $4 a month to spend.
Yeah.
So I feel like that would be mean to. Then what I was thinking is we could do a half and half. Half the live stream goes live on YouTube. The other half is members only.
Yeah, or you do something you maybe make the live stream a little bit like you said, cut it in half. So every off week is a regular live, and then in the in between weeks you have a Zoom call that's a little bit more
intimate.
Exactly.
I take my clothes off. Yes.
There we go. No, where people can
you
come in.
Want
and
to
we
see what I can do
have
to this balloon? Stay tuned.
this balloon. All right, there, Mr. Dress Up. Go in your tickle trunk.
Let me see. What are people saying? I've been looking here. I don't want to know what they're saying about that. Hope it's going to work out for you, man. Yeah, got a medal. I have no concerns about the YouTube channel. I'm not worried about money either. This is the thing. But I do have to justify going full-time on YouTube. I do still support the house. My wife is the main breadwinner. I still make money towards the house. So I still do have to justify, hey, love, I'm going to go live on YouTube. I make, a few hundred a month. Doesn't really work that well for her, so I'm going to have to be able to justify it to some degree. That said, if I go full-time on here, I'll make more money because I'm doing more content. So it's kind of one of those cyclical things. Ken, love the channel. Got a medal. I would support. Cheers. I love that. My wife watched the Super Cardioid video with me. She said she understood why I love the channel. Aw, that's sweet. Bangs, I clipped a wireless go to my cat and recorded 7 hours. Turns out it just lies down and looks out the window all day. That's Bangs has a lot of free time, eh? I'm starting to get that. Free time is a benefit.
Starting to get those vibes.
Unusual says notifications for live streams would be a great perk. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure. Maybe try the bell. If the bell is
again,
clicked.
I've been getting them on my separate, not used, sort of used YouTube channel. Every time the last few weeks I've been batting 100 for 100. So I don't know what's going on, but some people are getting them. YouTube is weird about notifications.
Yeah, got a medal. Maybe give a perk that makes giving advice for equipment and other stuff. Yeah, I guess we do that already.
I don't know, more BTS stuff. Maybe do a handheld little tour of your studio that you're in right now, and just walk around and talk about shit.
Yeah. Oh, that's kind of cool.
Little things like that.
Shipman Media here for the ride. Love the channel and love the content. Wherever you decide is good with me. Cheers. Appreciate that. Bang says, so an OnlyFans account. I thought about that.
We've
because
talked about that.
OnlyFans is not necessarily for nudity and sex.
No, it's
and
true. It's just been almost relegated to that, like Tumblr.
It's also like, if I dropped a dick pic, what are you going to do? It's an OnlyFans. I told you, we're on OnlyFans. No, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
Please don't.
No, you gotta do more erotic audiobook footage for us on OnlyFans. That's what you gotta do.
Ken just says, piss off Bandrew. I wonder if there's a way we could do that. Now, that Bandrew video that we did from a couple weeks back, we actually didn't get to address that. That's damn. Did you watch the video? Me reacting to the first?
I did not. It's on my list though. I have to watch it.
It was Bandrew. God bless him. Got on his horse and he did a reply video.
Yeah.
Which it like. I love the guy. That was awesome to see, and it's all in good fun, right? Like Bandrew ended up having stickers.
It's the YouTuber sort of milestone. It's the initiation of the YouTuber.
I got a lot of hate from people saying, "Oh man, Bandrew, like he's promoting your channel. You should be paying him." We were having fun. Actually, I had no I had no idea that he was gonna shoot a reply video and bring his. I just thought it was fun. Bandrew had fun with it. I talked to him a little bit afterwards. I was going to try to do a video with him, kind of a joke video, but that kind of fell through. Dude's a busy guy. So I don't know if I want to do Bandrew, piss Bandrew off, per se. The in-person Andrew was weird. Yeah, Bandrew was weird. Yeah, that was the Sound Speeds did that. They did the hunt. Do you know who Sound Speeds is?
I've probably seen videos in passing, but
very unique. The dude's a sound guy. Like he's an on-location sound guy. Knows his stuff. Him and Bandrew did like an on-location in a park. It was weird not seeing a desk in front of Bandrew. Gotta say. A sticker.
See him actually standing up.
Alan Soundspeeds. Yeah, Alan Soundspeeds. Soundspeeds is a great channel. Dude knows his stuff. And if there is anybody that is more thorough with their reviews and how they do things, it's Alan with Soundspeeds. Dude is ridiculously thorough.
Do you think he gets into floating point versus fixed point there?
Oh, he's the type of guy that would. But once again, types of channels are different for a reason, right?
Yeah, like, different audience, different target, different delivery.
So we'll see how that goes. We'll see exactly how the membership button goes. I'll let you guys know before it is. And I'm also going to do the poll just to make sure I'm giving back. Maybe I should get stickers, eh? Free sticker with a membership.
I better get like a complimentary damn membership, I swear.
You can have a complimentary membership.
Woo! Is that even? I don't even know. Is that a thing you can do? Can you just dish out?
No, you can't. No, you can't give out memberships. You have to pay for it. Sorry, buddy.
Damn.
Yeah, you're not allowed to be part of it, man. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm not even allowed to watch my own live stream.
No Dylan's allowed, man. We already have one Dylan. Sorry, buddy, you didn't make the cut. Yeah. Anyways, guys, thanks for joining us. Cheers. Great response, by the way. Tons of conversation going on today. And we will see you next week. I promise. We will be back on Friday. Not taking very many Fridays off. I can promise that. So have yourself a great day, and we'll see you next week.
Chat later.